Good morning, Stampers. It's Pat Fairless from Fairless Stamp and Flair, and I'm here today with Learning with Friends for a new technique. This one, I had not done this one before either, so I've been practicing it for the last week. I'm really excited to share it with you. I hope you like it. It's a little bit messy, and I got kind of carried away, so I have tons of things to show you. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the technique I'm going to do today is called spray and smash. And basically that's what we do. We drop some ink on a piece of paper and we spray it with water and then we smash it with another piece of paper. And you never know how it's going to turn out. So I had a lot of fun playing with this. It is a bit messy, as I indicated, so I'm actually going to put on some little latex gloves I have left over from COVID. Remember when we were afraid to touch anything and breathe anything? And oh my God, we had everything. And I got lots of leftovers from that. So I'm going to use these to try to keep the ink off my hands a bit. The supplies that we use for this are minimal. All we need are some water-based re-inkers or dye re-inkers. I'm going to use the Stampin' Up! Ink refills, and we need glossy paper, which could either be glossy cardstock or photo paper. Now, Stampin' Up! No longer sells glossy cardstock. I do have some left over in my stash, so I'm going to use some of that today, and I'm also going to show you the same technique with photo paper. Photo paper is relatively available wherever we go. Now there is an alternate technique that we use a mask, and I will show you that also. So like I said, I have lots of things to show you. So I'm going to start with the glossy cardstock, and you can see this is glossy. It's just regular glossy cardstock. This is Stampin' Up! Used to sell this. They do not anymore. But I'm gonna start with this one, and like I said, I will also show you the same technique on photo paper, and there are some differences, and I'll kind of talk through those as we go through it. I think there's pros and cons to both actually as I played with this. But for my first card, this is the colors I used: Lemon Lolly, Soft Sea Foam, and Calypso Coral. Now the instructions I read told me to start with the lightest color, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure it matters, but we're just going to drop this onto our glossy cardstock and kind of scatter it around. You may want more of the light colors than you would of the dark colors. And so maybe that's why they meant to say start with that, because then you could see where things were going. They all come out in the wash and mix together. So that was Soft Sea Foam. And now I'm going to drop a little bit of Calypso Coral. And I'll be honest, this was my favorite card when I first did this technique. So that's why I'm showing you this one first. Now we're going to take our water spritzer. I have a Stampin' Up! Water spritzer. You could use any water spritzer. Make sure the little spray thing's facing away from you, not towards you. Don't make me admit how I know that. I see I have a piece of hair on here. And now we're just going to spritz this. And we're going to spritz it quite a bit until the ink really starts to run. And you pretty much want your whole piece of paper covered with water, okay? And now we are going to take a second piece of glossy cardstock, and here's the smash part. That was the spray part. Now we're just going to smash this on top of here. Now I did put paper towel under there to help me, but we press it down, and we lift it up. And that is spray and smash. Isn't that beautiful? Makes such a pretty background, and you get two of them. Now, I did miss a little spot over there. There's nothing on that. You could certainly dip your cardstock on there again. I'm going to show you one where I did that, but for this one, I am now just going to set this aside and show you the card that I made with this. Now, one thing, this doesn't take long to dry. It will curl just a bit when it's wet, but amazingly, it pretty much flattens out once it's dry. The other thing, and I have lots of paper towels handy, so I'm going to make sure I have all the ink even off from here, because I want to pick up my card and show you my card that I made with this particular background. And get ink on it. So here's the card that I made with this background. I've got a little leak down here on this thing. Clean this off before I lay a card in it. That's always my style. And I just use the Grove dies and die cut the Grove and a little deer and added a sentiment, and that's all I did. So you can see how easy that is. This was my other card, you know, like I said, I got two, so this was my other technique. Now, the one thing I wanted to show you, and I don't know if this is a pro or con, it would be depending on your perspective, I guess. But if you look at this, and I'm going to bring back one of my wet ones here that hasn't dried yet, and you look at these two, both of these are on glossy cardstock. And you can see that originally this was on, while it's still wet, the colors are much more intense and much brighter. But as it dried on the glossy cardstock, they tended to soften. So if you want a softer look, that's good to know, right? Every time I handle this, I'm going to ink on my fingers. So let me put this back aside. And I am going to show you another card. So this was the first one. This is the one with the background that I just showed you. And my second card I made was also on glossy cardstock. And here, remember how I said I had missed a couple spots, didn't get any ink up in this corner, and I could dip it again? Well, I have the same thing on this one. And so I took my sheet. You can see I still have some white up here, but I laid this back on the first one. But since I was just missing it at the top, I just laid it on the top of my original piece, which has been cut down for the card, obviously. But look what happened when I did that. It created this line. You can see that across there. It kind of created a horizon. And I'm like, oh, I like that. That's so cool looking. And here it looks like we got little water spouts and maybe a storm coming, doesn't it? But I like that. So when I say don't feel bad about going back and touching it again, if you feel like you've missed a place, just be aware that it probably will make a line. You can see my horizon is not perfectly straight because I didn't know it was going to make a line. Had I thought about that, I'd made it a little straighter as opposed to going uphill. But that's okay. I always tend to make my technique sheets, I call this a technique sheet, a little larger than my final size, potentially anyway. So I can always straighten it out by how I cut it. But so this was my second card. The colors on this one are Lost Lagoon, Highland Heather, and Crumb Cake. And I'm going to show you, so after I did these two, I then said, well, let's go ahead, let me set these aside, and try glossy or photo paper. So this basically uses the same colors on photo paper as this card here, with the exception that on this one, I did put some pretty peacock on there as well, which are these darker colors, but this is dry. And look how much it is, the colors are so much more intense than they are on the glossy cardstock. So this is photo paper versus glossy cardstock. And the other thing is, as you noticed with the glossy cardstock, the colors really seem to move around and smoosh when I smashed my thing on there. This one on the original photo color paper, and even to some extent on the one I smashed on top, you can see exactly where I dropped my ink. You got dots. But, and I wasn't sure if I really liked that. But I turned it into a card anyway, and I just cut it out and made it into a frame. So you can see that it's kind of, you can see these dots on the frame, but I thought, you know, I love the intensity of the color that you get when you're on the photo color paper. And I just thought it made these little giraffes really pop. So that was my third card. Now I am going, I might as well show you the envelope. Check out the envelope flap. Isn't that pretty? And there you can definitely see the dots. But again, it's a different look and it's just kind of whatever you're after. Now, one thing you can do is, so this was my initial piece. I laid a piece on here and smashed it into it. And this was this piece. And I still had a lot of water left on here. So I don't know if the photo paper doesn't absorb the water as much, and that's why it makes the dots. I'm not sure exactly what the technology is behind that, but I'm like, I had a lot of water on there. So I took another scrap of photo paper. I got lots of it for some reason. And I laid it on there again. And then I took another one and laid it a third time. And this was the card I wanted to show you. This is what it eventually looked like. This was, I believe, my third attempt at pushing it on there. And I don't think you would ever believe that this came from that, would you? There's a hint of some crumb cake in here. You can see it. There's a hint down here of a little Highland Heather or pink. But I'm like, oh, that I didn't really like it. So I just kind of set it aside. I'm like, man, I'll toss. I thought I was going to toss it out. But then I decided I'm going to leave it till tomorrow till it dries and take a look at it because I didn't know. And I looked at this the next day and I was so excited. I saw waves. I saw the ocean. And I'm like, I am going to cut my waves dice on here. And I think hopefully you can see the one in the background is white cardstock that I just brushed lightly with my blending brushes and some Tahitian Tide ink. I had no Tahitian Tide ink in this piece of paper. I had Lost Lagoon, Pretty Peacock, Highland Heather, and Crumb Cake. And it looks like Tahitian Tide. So the wave on the top is made with our holographic specialty paper. So I think as I twist this and turn this a little bit and tip it, you can see the colors change. I was so excited. I'm like, that is my favorite. That's my favorite piece yet. So now I want to show you another way to use the photo paper. So here's my photo paper, and I am going to, once again, lay down plenty of paper towels because, like I said, it does get messy and I don't want too much water on my background. So this is regular photo paper. This is HP photo paper. I don't know, I've had it a long time. Don't even know why I have so much of it. But I am going to use these in colors, Pebble Path, Boho Blue, and Moody Mauve. And I am going to drip those on there just like I did with the first one and take a second piece and smash it into it. But before I do that, I'm going to give it a little twist. Now, get my prop ready here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with, don't think it matters. I'm going to start with the Moody Mauve. And just drop them randomly. I will take some Boho Blue and add that. and a little bit of pebbled path. In between here and there. Probably won't put as much pebbled path. This is a 5x7 sheet of photo paper, so it's pretty good size. And I am again going to spritz with water. And we will spritz until the whole thing's pretty wet and the ink is running. Now remember how I showed you the one, how it really kind of stayed in dots. We'll see if it makes a liar out of me or if this one runs more. I don't know. We will see. I just want to make sure I got water most everywhere. Okay, and I will take a mask now. So I am going to lay, this is a mask I have in my stash, and I'm just going to lay that on there. Didn't mean for it to fall, but that's all right. And I'm going to press this into the mask and then pick it up. And look at that. How cool is that? If you're a graphic kind of person, you like designs, this is fun. Now, I'll pick this one up carefully, and you can see it on the bottom one, but not quite as well as this one. And you can also see how these dots, now I have to find a place to lay this, or I'm not going to make a mess of my workspace here. I said, it's a little messy. Now I have plenty of water on here still. So in reality, I could take another one and just lay it on here. And let's see what happens. Press it into that. I'm not going to mess the one over here. I could have pushed a little harder and we'd had some more lines. I'll show you a card I made with this. And this is, it's okay. I don't know what I'd do with it, but if you like dots, works good with dots, right? So let me lay these aside someplace. I got stuff everywhere. I need a bigger place to lay stuff. So let me get these out of my way before I lay something in them that I don't want in them. And I thought this was really cool, how this turns out with the mask. And I didn't push quite as hard on this one as I did with the card that I made. So let me show you the card that I have. I pushed a little harder on this piece, but it was the same technique with that same diagonal mask. And does that make an interesting card? So simple. All I needed to add was some ribbon and a sentiment, and I've called it good. So let me move this out of my way because this is very wet. Lift this up. And I made a second card also with a mask. With this particular card, I used our current masks, which are called the Artistic Mix masks. It's probably a little hard to see on here. Lay this down. This one's checked. And I think I've done playing with inks. So let me take my gloves off, and I don't have to worry about transferring ink on something. And I'm going to bring this up close, and you can kind of see up in here that that's where the mask was, because you could see a sign. I laid some flowers over it from the Meadow, what's it called? Quiet Meadow die cuts. So these are the Meadow dies. And you can see that on there. The piece that I laid it on is this one. And you can see that, if you look closely, you can see that mask. But this was the bottom piece, and the one on the card was my top piece. So the colors on this particular card are Bubble Bath, Parakeet Party, and Pool Party. So this one was very pastel-y. And like I said, each time you do this, you get 2 sheets. So this was the other piece of this, I think. So you got lots of bits and pieces to make cards with. So I thought this was kind of a fun technique. I am going to pull these all back in here so you can see them. So here was my first one on photo paper. This was my second one on photo paper. Or I'm sorry, these are glossy cardstock. And then here's a photo paper. And this is a photo paper. This is back to glossy cardstock, but with a mask. And this is photo paper with a mask. So I got lots of cards here for you today. If you want more information on any of these, I'll put my information, contact information is on my YouTube channel. The wave dies was posted in my blog yesterday, so there is a free tutorial out at fearlessstampandflair.com for this particular card. And tomorrow, this card will be going up for post, and there will be a free tutorial for this one as well. So those are all my cards. Don't count on this many every time. Like I said, I got a bit carried away. But I'm going to bring myself back here. And we will wrap this up. So I hope you like that. I think it's a lot of fun. I know I enjoyed making those cards. They were, anytime something looks like water or doesn't know quite what it looks like, I like to see what I can turn it into. So those are fun for me. If you liked it, will you give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel? Share it with your friends. That would be great. We can all learn and have fun together, right? So thanks again so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye.